Afternoon, Simon. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Peter. How about yourself?
Simon, I am brilliant. The sun is shining, the schools are just about finished, and summer is almost started. Simon, thanks very much for taking the time to speak with me today. Welcome to the Business Spotlight. Could you start by telling me a little about yourself, your background, and your business, please?
Absolutely. So my name's Simon Whittaker. I'm CEO of Vertical Structure. You'll probably be able to tell from my accent that I'm not originally from these shores, but I moved over here in 1998, I think it was, for a job. I'll tell you more about kind of the kind of career history in a second, but I moved over here for a job and in 1998 met a girl, and that was pretty much it. After that, I didn't really leave again. I have been working in the tech sector since around about 2000, 2001, something like that. Actually, the reason I came over here before I started off as in the tech world, I actually went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts and studied stage management and theatre production. So I did 2 years at RADA and got an honours diploma in stage management and theatre production, which is hanging on the wall behind me if I didn't have my silly background on. Signed by Richard Attenborough, Lord Attenborough himself, no less. So I was came over here for the job, and I realised after a while that working in the theatre is really tough. I was working at the Lyric. It was the old Lyric Theatre. If anyone has ever been to it, really, really brilliant place, great people, great crack, all that sort of stuff. But it's hard work. It's really, really tough. You're working when everyone's not working. The wages are pretty rubbish. The times that you're doing things, you're up until 4 o'clock on a Saturday morning, moving a set in and out. It's hard graft. So I did what a lot of people try to do, and I thought, what am I doing? Am I enjoying myself? No. What do I want to do? Well, I've always loved computers. I've always loved IT. I've always loved tech. So that's what I'm going to do. And so I was able to do some Open University courses, transferred into becoming a developer, and then blagged a job, my first job, and was able to move into the tech world.
Very good. So from curtain call to firewall, that's some
Yeah,
transition.
absolutely. Yeah.
And what was the spark that led you to launch Vertical Structure?
So I think it was the fact. So firstly, cybersecurity is something that I became very passionate about. So when I was working as a developer, we were working for lots and lots of large oil and gas organizations, doing lots of really cool stuff, traveling the world. Spent a lot of time in Houston. I got to fly to Alaska. It was flown over there for a 3 hour meeting once. It was ridiculous, but it was fascinating. Um, and I think that while I was doing that, we started work with a Russian oil and gas company. And the Russian oil and gas company were the first people to ever say to us, "Have you ever had a security or penetration test?" And we said, "No, but we're really good at this stuff. Don't worry, it's absolutely fine. It'll all be grand." And we knew we were in trouble when they started that test within about 3 or 4 seconds when they started destroying everything that we owned. And they actually stopped the test within 20 seconds. But for me, that was a great big career change moment again. For me, that was like that. That's so cool. How do I learn how to do that? I understand why that's working. I was tailing the logs and I could see the attacks were working. So that for me was a really, really big step. And then my friend Mark and I had always wanted to work together. We'd worked together in a couple of companies, and we thought, well, everyone else is doing this. Lots of other people are doing this. Why can't I? Why can't we? Why can't we work together? And it's one of those things that, you suddenly you have that conversation and you realize that, the job you're doing is fun and it's good, but actually you could take another step and see what the crack is and see what else is out there. And so we decided to do that. And we've been very fortunate so far. We've got a fantastic team that we've grown over the last few years. We are very much a brilliant group of people more than anything else. We don't make technology. We don't do any of those things. It's all about people for us, and that's such an important part of our industry, and very different to an awful lot of the firms. So I guess overall, it was that idea that we wanted to do it together. We wanted to be see what we could do, and have a bit of fun along the way, and see what we could get sorted.
And tell me a little about your target market. What types of businesses or organizations do you enjoy working with and that really benefit from working with Vertical Structure?
So it's For us, that's a really interesting and quite a complicated question to answer, because actually cybersecurity involves, the impact of cybersecurity is for everybody. It's there for every single company, whether you're a one person organization or, selling, you've got an electronic point of sale system in your e-shop on the high street, or you're a mega insurance corp or whatever it is. We tend to find that the people who wanting to do our stuff are kind of start and scale up size. So we work with everybody from, kind of two people with a good idea. I was chatting to a chap this morning. He sits in Ormo baths every day. He's got a very small team of people, and he's really starting to kind of make headway. And those for me are some of the most exciting people that we can work with. We've worked in the past with organizations like Overwatch Research and Kairos, who recently were acquired. And seeing those people come up with this fantastic idea, realizing they need to kind of formalize it and put some process around it and put some security around it, and realizing that when the big players come knocking, they need to have a penetration test, an ISO certificate, a security manual, a security they have to have those things in order. And if you have those things in order and the big clients come knocking, you can just throw it back to them, just pass it straight over to them and say, this is what we've got here. So those sort of clients where you're starting to see, and you see them with a really brilliant idea, 2 to 3 people, they're fantastic. Now, we also have clients who are 50 people, who are 5,000 people. It really does depend. And each and every single one of them, they have different needs and they have different requirements. But it's that idea that they are wanting to understand more about how cybersecurity works and try to keep them and their organization and their people safe. So those are the sort of people we love to speak with, are people who are actually interested in changing these things.
And what would you say has been the biggest lesson that you've had since taking the plunge and being a business owner?
I think for me, it's to have the right people on the journey with you. So there's that old adage, and I genuinely can't remember who said it, but I think Steve Jobs might have said it at some point, whether that was a repeat or not. But it's that adage of hire smart people and get them to tell you what to do. I love that. I think that's just fantastic. I don't know the answers to everything. I wish I did, but unfortunately I don't. And with if the right people say to me, or the people I trust and my peers say to me, we should do this, then we will always do that. I might have my reservations, or we might say we'll do it in a small way and try it out, or we'll do some, but we will always do it. We will always try it. We will always try to do that, because they know this world better than me in so many different ways. And I think that's a really, really important way to be thinking. So having those right people along the way has been really, really vital. Also having the right business partner to be with. So for me, having the right business partner, having Mark and I on the journey together, has been absolutely critical. You have to have 2 people, in my view, doing 2 different things. I cannot imagine having to come home from a day of, when I was doing the pen testing myself, of being a pen tester or being a consultant or being whatever, and then having to go home and work out what the VAT bill was, or how much the wage bill is, or whether they've paid us or they haven't paid us, or chasing up the same people I'm trying to get to give us more money for the jobs that we're doing. You have to have that separation. I love going out and talking to people. I love going out and meeting people and doing things like this, and going to events and chatting to people. Mark does not love doing that, but he does love making sure that we don't go to prison. He loves making sure we don't go to prison, that the VAT bill's paid, the wage bill is paid, everybody is happy, we've been paid, we've paid everybody else, the HMRC don't, we don't owe them any money. We're also, it is really genuinely that partnership. And yes, I might be the public face of the company, but we would be nothing without Mark sorting and making sure everything happens. It is that partnership that I think really helps. So people and the right partnerships, I think, is so important.
Great share. And are there any business? I know you mentioned Steve Jobs, and that's a great quote of his. I think I use that for him as well. So we'll agree that it was him that said it. So, but are there any other business leaders that you either have looked up to or have influenced you along the way?
I don't know. I mean, I really, for me, there are just so many people who, you read some of the stuff they're talking about, and think about the things that people are up to. And actually, my wife many years ago told me to go away and read this book. And I did what I normally do, which is like, yeah, of course I will. I'll get round to it in a wee minute, and then ignored it for 7 years, and then went and eventually picked it up. And it's a book called "Will It Make the Boat Go Faster" by a chap called Ben Hunt Davis. And he is an Olympic rower. He's an Olympic athlete. He's a very he they won the gold in 2000 in the eight, and it's his journey really of discovering about how his business works. But he wrote it with a comedian, and so therefore there's two viewpoints. And I just love his attitude towards stuff. And his attitude towards stuff is always about things like feedback. Always ask for feedback and listen to it. Don't just kind of do that pushing over the top of it sort of thing. After a meeting, say, what did you think? Did you think there was anything we should have done better? We have a fabulous chap who's just started working with us very recently, and he will call me after every client meeting and say, how do you think that went? Is there anything we should have done differently? And I love that. I love that attitude of let's always try to improve and do these things better. But he also has an attitude of in the book of saying, ignore there's a phrase about very specific to their rowing team, but it was something about don't listen to Basil's bullshit or something like that. Pardon my French, you might have to cut that out. But don't listen to that stuff. Listen to the stuff which is positive change about what you can do. I really couldn't recommend the book highly enough, and it came very highly recommended from my wife, who is someone I trust dearly. And but I would absolutely say that Ben Hunt Davis and his colleague Harriet. I've forgotten her surname, but it is absolutely brilliant. And he is a a really fantastic speaker about how to approach things in the business world.
And what would you say, Simon, that gets you out of the bed in the morning and really drives the passion for your business?
I think it's the people again. I get to work with some of the best people around. We really do have a fantastic team. We don't have a boring, drab team of people who've all got the same experience, who's got the same stuff. We do suffer from in the tech industry from a very much it's a very male dominated society, unfortunately. But we're working to try to change that, and we're trying to make sure that we've got better representation at all levels. So we've got we're really trying to make sure that we get that updated. But I think it's the people that you get to meet, and also you get to spend time talking with people, as I say, who know much more about this subject than I do, and I get to speak with them on a daily basis about some of the cool stuff they're doing. We do a session every few months. We've called it a couple of different things, but one of them was who we are and what we do, I think, is one of the things. It's a ridiculous acronym, so stupid, but and what we did was we got people just to stand up and say, this is what I do, and then everybody else could ask questions. And despite the fact that everybody sits next to one another or knows everybody quite well, actually there were things being talked about that no one, that the consulting team didn't know, that the pen testing team did that, and the pen testing team didn't know that the training team offered this, and they didn't know. And and together, when you share that sort of stuff and you get all these awesome people in a room, it's really cool. Really good. And before that, we went driving Land Rovers in Todd's Leap, so across the countryside. So we got to have a bit of everything, really. So it was wonderful.
And what would you've mentioned the book already? Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? Which sounds great. I've made a note of that one. Well, what would be if you're on a desert island and you're only allowed a book or a podcast or both, what would you be reading or listening to?
So does it have, if it has to be a business book, I've got one answer, and if it can be any book in the world, then I'll choose something else.
Well, give us both. You can give us both.
Well, the business book would be Will It Make the Boat Go Faster, without question. I actually I own that on audiobook. or printed copy and on Kindle as well. And actually, I bought a copy for a good few people in the team, and also bought a copy for our non-exec director when he started with us about 3 years ago as well. It really had that impact on me. I'd be remiss if I didn't say I would listen to the Cyber Tuesday podcast by Vertical Structure, but that would be that's obviously just a bit of shameless plugging. From a book perspective, I love a little bit of trash. I love the Jack Reacher books by Lee Child. I listen to them on audiobook one after another, and then I read them again, and I've been reading them for years, like 20 something years I've been reading these. And they're so similar, and the stories are pretty identical, but do you know what? It's a nice, relaxing, happy place. You know what's going to happen. You know everything's going to be okay at the end, and it just is a really cool. I really love them. I really love that sort of stuff. And from a podcast place, I would say, Darknet Diaries is one that if you're into cybersecurity, you listen to. If you're not into cybersecurity, listen to it anyway. It is absolutely fantastic. They do stories, very, very cool stories, and they have some brilliant interviewees. They talk about cybercrime. They talk about the WannaCry crisis. They talk about lots of very, very interesting things. So I think that's a very good thing. And if I may just add one more thing to the list, which is around audiobooks, because I love an audiobook. I absolutely love the Slow Horses books from which just been adapted to a TV show. I love the description of Jackson Lamb in that. If anyone has ever read it, he talks about things like don't be the, I don't want to be the devil's avocado or whatever it is, but you watch those or you listen to those, and you realize that is how not to do things. That is how not to be a manager. That is how not to lead a team. And then he does some amazing things that make you think he's not so bad underneath, but actually he's an awful human being in every level. But I love those stories as well, and I frequently find me kind of out for a run just listening to Sean Barrett narrating the audiobooks of Slow Horses. Another recommendation from my wife, actually. I must.
I haven't read or listened to, but I've watched the show on TV. I have to think what a great character, and Gary Oldman I thought was superb.
Isn't he fantastic? And,
Yeah.
and you watch him in Harry Potter, and he's this cool, suave, uncle of Harry, and then you watch him in that, and he's just a gross, grotesque human being. It's amazing. He's fantastic in that. Absolutely fantastic.
And Simon, if it were possible and you could go back in time, and back to the time when you had a bona fide English accent, and you could give some advice to your 18-year-old self,
Yeah.
What would that be?
Well, I think that it would be just to maybe give things like, starting a business earlier, give it a try, see what happens. That, especially in the industry that I'm in, if you're good or not, because people will keep on paying you to do stuff. You know what I mean? If you're good in services, then people will pay you to deliver those services to them. You don't have to spend £1 million on creating a product or doing all of those sort of things. Build that up later if you want to. But actually, in this industry, if you're good at this stuff, if you like speaking to people, you do a good result at the end, and you're bring good value to the organizations that you're working with, and you're a decent person, actually it can be a really, really good really good thing to be part of. So I think it would just be, give it a try a bit earlier, learn as much about business as possible. I mean, the things I've learned from working with Mark, from being a business partner with Mark and a co-founder with Mark for the last goodness knows how many years, I've learned so much from him, and that idea is just of learning from people like that who are amazing. He doesn't realize he's a great teacher, but he is an absolutely brilliant teacher for helping you to understand about things. So I think it would just be start it sooner, give it a shot and see what happens. Because the worst thing that can happen is you have to go and get yourself a real job after a little while, but it can be really class.
And if somebody likes what they've heard and would like to reach out to you or get in touch with Vertical Structure, what would be the best way for them to go about that?
So we're verticalstructure.com. We do a lot of content on our on our LinkedIn pages as well. So follow us on there. You'll hear an awful lot about what we do. We do try to talk. It's one of the things that we've identified as something we love to do and we want to do more, is to talk about how class we are, because the team are brilliant. I like pushing them in front of people and just saying, here, listen to this person speak. It's awesome. So you can find out more about us on there. We do our Cyber Tuesday podcast on a monthly basis, available on YouTube and Spotify. You'll be able to find us on there. And then you can also just drop us an email at hello@verticalstructure.com, and we'll hopefully speak again. We can hopefully speak on that.
Fantastic. Well, Simon Whittaker from Vertical Structure, thanks very much for sharing your story. Absolutely fascinating and palpable, the passion that you've got for your business. So I wish you all the success for the second half of 2024 and beyond. Simon, thanks very much indeed.
Peter, thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was really fun to do.